Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. 7 o'clock. Our new digital clock tells me so. So we will kick off the meeting. You'll see it there, spot on, accurate time. Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards, Leader of the Council and Chairman of the Cabinet. This evening, no members of the public, and this is a meeting in public rather than a public meeting, which means that there are no speaking rights from the floor. The only items in discussion tonight will be in the agenda. Health and safety issues. Should an alarm go, we will evacuate the building. There are plenty of us very familiar with the layout. We will help anybody out that needs it, but the best way out is the way you came in through those doors and then down the staircases. I'd ask everybody please to make sure their mobile phones are turned to silent and any other devices. I will just welcome anybody who may be following us on YouTube to this meeting. If we go through the agenda, please. Apologies for absence.
Thank you. All Cabinet members are present.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any additional declarations of interest, colleagues? None noted. Thank you. Approve the minutes of the last meeting. That's on pages 1 to 14 of the pack. Are those minutes agreed?
Agreed.
Item 4. To confirm that there are items of business in both Part 1 and Part 2. What this means, colleagues, is that Part 1, the public discussion of matters of policy, and we will be going through that agenda. Part 2 are private matters. These tend to be largely commercial and are commercial in confidence at that stage, so the discussions are held in private. We will break between Part 1 and Part 2. We will break the YouTube link at that stage, and we will invite members of the public to leave the meeting before we move into Part 2. So we now get into the full Cabinet agenda of interest. That's the Part 1. Agenda item 5, the draft Uxbridge Town Centre vision for public engagement. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Leader. This report begins on page 15 of the Cabinet bundle and seeks approval to consult on the draft Uxbridge Town Centre vision. This further consultation builds on the positive community engagement we obtained in our initial consultation to take forward the development of Uxbridge Town Centre. Uxbridge is our only metropolitan town centre, and its future success is important to the whole of this borough, and hence why we're bringing this work forward at this time. Its past strengths of a vibrant office sector with 2 large retail shopping centres will need to adapt to the reduced demand for office accommodation, changing shopping habits and the need for a more diverse leisure offering. Going forward, we will need better navigation around the town centre with increased residential space, and to build on our work of using the Civic Centre site as a community hub, which will of course include the new Uxbridge Library. The vision, when finalised, will become an important planning consideration in assessing future applications, but it also gives the whole community, including potential developers, a picture of what we are seeking to achieve. I do encourage all residents to read and contribute to the consultation. The whole report, or the whole consultation document, which is the appendix to the Cabinet, is about 108 pages long. There is a helpful, attached to the Cabinet report, summary which gives the main points and the main issues, which is much easier to read for anyone who wishes to do it. I therefore move the 3 recommendations at the bottom of page 15. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lavery. We will hear later in this meeting, under agenda item 12, the financial challenges that are facing the council, as are facing all councils. But it's important that we also look forward and we prepare for the future, and I'm delighted that we are carrying out this work to reinvent Uxbridge Town Centre, recognising the changes that have happened over the last recent years. Colleagues, are the recommendations agreed? Agreed. Agenda item 6, Safeguarding Partnerships, the annual report. Is it Councillor Palmer, Dean? Thank you very much. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. This report summarises the work undertaken by Hillingdon Safeguarding Partnership to safeguard Hillingdon residents, adults with care and support needs and vulnerable children. Councillor O'Brien will speak in a moment about the children and families, and I will concentrate on the adults. I'm going to start by thanking Susie Gladish, the report author, but I'm also going to read from the independent scrutineer, who says, there continues to be many strengths to the safeguarding arrangements for both children and adults across Hillingdon. I have found a strong partnership that is open to scrutiny and challenge, and one that strives to continually learn and improve practice. I have not come across any areas of poor practice or weakness in service provision. There is strong leadership from the ELG, which is the Executive Leadership Group, and a clear sense of joint and equal responsibility from the three safeguarding partners. The partnership is one that is built on high support, high challenge, and where difficult conversations are encouraged. I think it's important that I say that at the start. So we have continued to engage with consultation groups, including older people's forums. We've actively encouraged people with lived experience to engage with us. The most common concerns identified by our physical health services are neglect and self-neglect, and for mental health services it is physical abuse. We continue good relationships with the LBH MASH team and Hillingdon Hospital, the Integrated Care Board, Police and the Fire Brigade. Subgroups include the Joint Strategic and Trafficking plus a Practice Development Forum. Show Racism the Red Card, focused on structural inequalities and anti-discrimination. World Suicide Prevention Day was highlighted and training videos were provided for practitioners. Resources were highlighted for suicide bereavement. A Learning from Fatal Fires Task and Finish group was established, led by the Borough Commander for the London Fire Brigade. Focus has been on exploitation and cuckooing, and work was started which will continue during the coming financial year. The community safety units in the West area have highest demand across London, with large volumes of domestic abuse and the highest amount of stalking prevention orders. The Domestic Abuse Steering Executive, under my leadership, provides strategic oversight and delivery of domestic partnership strategy. So essentially the many successes have been in our partnership working, and as always it's something Hillingdon can be proud of. I would urge everyone to have a look at the report. It really is very, very comprehensive, and I thank Susie Gladish again for her work and for this report. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Leader, for allowing me the opportunity to speak to this report, and Councillor Palmer. I'm just going to add on to what Councillor Palmer has just said with regards to with her portfolio with adults, and I'm just going to speak about the children's side of it, to support the Safeguard Hillingdon residents, which including vulnerable children. And the partnership continues to meet an increasing complexity of needs for those children requiring safeguarding support and intervention. We have seen a particular rise in emotional psychological needs for children. Last year the Council had its ILAC Ofsted inspection, and we were awarded outstanding with a specific recognition of the strengths in partnership working. This report notes that over the past year, partners have worked together, exploring the practice of the voice of the person, which is a child-centred approach. This was also another year of collaborative work between partnership organisations. A number of the partnerships that Councillor Palmer has already mentioned. I'm not going to reiterate all of the organisations, but there are very, very many of us that work together. Ensuring that the joint safeguarding priorities were met. The strategic high-risk panel's overarching objective is to prevent, intervene and disrupt child exploitation. The Stronger Families team continued to play an integral role within contextual safeguarding in the continued development of local community networking to support children and families and report into the Community Safety Partnership, and with a new serious violence subgroup. The Council's Access Service continues to underpin Hillingdon's partnership response to adolescents at risk and focuses on transitional safeguarding with early intervention and diversion tools to escalate young people away from more serious violent offences. The child sexual abuse subgroup continues its work and is now 3 years in. Its main purpose is to raise awareness within the community and across the partnerships to enhance practitioner capacity to identify, increase knowledge and develop a coordinated response to all forms of child sexual abuse when concerns arise. The education safeguarding subgroup has representatives from early years, primary, secondary, special schools and also further education colleges. This group is to provide education leaders with a formal way into the wider working partnerships to improve information sharing and training across all educational landscapes. The vision of Hillingdon's Safeguarding Partnership is for every child and young person to feel safe, enjoy good physical, emotional and mental health, have pride in their unique identity, to feel that they belong and have opportunities to thrive. The Safeguarding Children's Partnership have identified the following priority areas for 2025, which is child sexual abuse, contextual safeguarding, educational safeguarding and transitional safeguarding. I want to now thank the officers and the partnership organisations that have worked together on this report and behind the scenes to change the lives of children and young people within this borough. The work that they are doing is immense. It's preventative work and it's keeping our children as safe as they possibly can be. Thank you. I'll hand back now to Councillor Palmer for the recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Leader. So I'm asking that the Cabinet notes the annual report and notes the way in which the partnership has responded to the challenges posed by changing local, national and international contexts, and note the strategic priorities for safeguarding 24-25. And as Councillor O'Brien has outlined her priorities for children, the adult priorities would be neglect, cuckooing and exploitation. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Palmer. Colleagues, this is a very strong report. The comments of the independent scrutiny are exceedingly powerful. It's an area of work that's probably not recognised by our residents, the work that goes on behind the scenes, keeping our vulnerable people and others safe. And I'm pleased that the Chief Executive is alongside me, who is a member of the strong leadership from the ELG. And what I would like you to do, please, is accept our thanks and share that with your colleagues on the ELG and also the members of staff that support you in the work that you do. This is a very good annual report, and it speaks very highly of the effective partnership that exists in Hillingdon. Colleagues, are the three recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 7, this is a referral from the full council, the options to increase controls for the houses of multiple occupancy. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Leader. The report begins on page 105, and this report follows the referral from the full council meeting in July 2024. The provision of high quality housing for all residents should be important to all of us, as it is to all of our residents. There were two principal concerns underlying the council motion: the growth of small houses in multiple occupation under permitted development rights where no planning permission is required for those buildings, and the second being the standards in some private rented property. There are two different possible measures to deal with these concerns. For HMOs, an Article 4 directive withdrawing the permitted development rights, if implemented, would require planning permission for all HMOs. This is subject to approval of the Secretary of State and, in line with best practice, would require a 12-month deferment before it was implemented. The second measure is a licensing scheme to drive up standards in the private housing sector, and this could include HMOs, but also other private rented properties. These measures could be adopted across the whole of the borough or in parts of the borough. The important point behind this is that we do need to have robust data to support any of the measures we introduce. In the case of the HMO, because they will be reviewed by the Secretary of State, and also to avoid us being subject to challenge, as has happened in other boroughs. The report sets out the data collection requirements to make the robust case. It then requests the delegation to the Corporate Director and myself to progress the consultation and report back to Cabinet. What I would ask tonight is that anybody listening here in the room and also online, when these consultations come out, we do require responses, as many responses as possible. So please, councillors, do encourage your residents to respond. They have issues with private sector, their housing, or there are issues with HMOs in their area, because that evidence base will be important to us in any decisions we take going forward. There are 5 recommendations on page 106, and I now move those, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lovery. Are the 5 recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 8, London Borough of Hillingdon Digital Strategy. Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Leader. I move the recommendations which are at the top of page 122 in respect to this digital strategy, which is an ambitious programme over the next 3 years of investment to ensure that we deliver on the aim to make this authority more efficient in the way in which we are able to perform our tasks. I obviously would encourage people to read the strategy which is attached to this report, but as a summary, page 126, paragraph 11, I think provides a very useful guidance as to what the aims are all about and where the investment is going to be focused and what we're aiming to actually achieve at the end of the 3-year period. 5 distinct programmes that provide us with the flexibility and the modernisation and the ability to do transformation in a way which up to now we've had barriers getting in the way of. Too many times in going through processes of this organisation, we find that the processes are very old in the way in which they've been carried out, and because they've always been done like that. And it's a way of which this method of looking at how we can re-energise and re-engineer the way we do things will enable us to create the savings that we need to be able to make sure that our frontline services, which are very important to us, have the ability of being maintained. The local authorities, because we provide so many services, has loads and loads of data, and that data is very rich with intelligence. The problem is not everyone who needs to know about it within the local authority is aware of where it all is and what is the most up-to-date pieces of data. So one of these projects under business intelligence is about getting all the data into the right place to make sure that it is easily accessible and understood by all the staff who need to be aware of what that data is before they make policy and personal decisions that can affect our residents. The other thing, which of course is very important to us, is about our residents themselves and their experiences. We're all aware that our current website, despite numerous attempts to make it better over time, remains, I think the fair word is, clunky. And it can be a bit of a navigational challenge to sometimes find everything that you're looking for. So this programme is going to really make a real attempt to ensure that we get a revamped website that will enable residents to easily and quickly find the transactions that they need to do. Because if we're going to encourage more and more of our residents, which we are doing with the success of the My Account spreading out throughout the borough, to do more things for themselves and to help support their journey in dealing with us as a local authority, the website is an important part of where they will need to get the information from. But finally, and I think this is a very important part of the programme, it's no good getting new fancy equipment that can do all kinds of modern things, if our staff at the end of the day haven't had the learning and development to know exactly what that new equipment is capable of delivering for them. And therefore an important part of this programme will be a learning and development support for our staff to ensure that they get the best out of this investment, because as I said, it is ambitious, it is quite a lot of money over a 3-year programme, but it's the kind of transformational change that we need to go along with all the other bits of transformation that we have successfully started out on to achieve the ultimate end game of a more efficient organisation as a local authority, and still having money available to deliver the services which at ward level we are proud to deliver when we talk to residents. I move the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mills. It's almost, well, it is inconceivable to me that a modern, efficient local authority could operate without really good digital strategy and technologies and systems supporting it. And as you say, it is a sizable investment. £9 million is a lot of money. But I would draw residents' attention to the fact that actually the return on that investment is nearly 50% per annum in perpetuity. So this, for me, is an exceedingly well-made investment. Colleagues, the recommendations agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 9, consultation on the review of Strategic Climate Action Plan. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Leader. This begins on page 153. The Council declared a climate emergency in 2020, and following this, an action plan was adopted. The plan contains 6 corporate commitments and 9 key themes. This report contains a review of the progress we have made on this plan and sets out proposed actions for the next 3 years. A couple of highlights. I would highlight the 54% reduction we have achieved in the Council's own carbon footprint. The Works Council buildings, including the one we're sat in here tonight, to drive further reductions. And I'm told that the new heat pumps will work very shortly, which is good news. Our fleet purchasing, including electric vehicles where these are practical, but also actually more efficient vehicles which contribute less emissions where these are not practical. The change in climate and weather patterns has also impacted flooding within the borough, and the report details work on some of the completed projects that we have done, which were tested very recently, and I'm pleased to report the ones that we had completed did their job as intended. The recommendations of this report are on page 154, and I move those now.
Thank you very much, colleagues. The recommendations agreed. Agree. Item 10, Transport for London Local Implementation Plan Annual Spending Submission. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. Well, as the agenda item on page 165 title says, this is about the Local Implementation Plan 3-year delivery programme. The Mayor of London sets out a transport strategy and priorities that he wants to pursue, and each London borough is able to bid against that strategy for its own borough. And those strategies include things like safer corridors and neighbourhoods, cycle training, bus priority, cycle networks, safer streets, and better bus partnerships. So it's those sorts of areas. The baseline funding and the very clear indication we get is that what you got last year is, roughly speaking, what you're going to get next year and the year after, and we're talking about a figure of just sort of short of £1.5 million per annum. So it's money well worth having, and starting on page 173 is a much more detailed schedule of where we're proposing to spend that money over the next 3 years. This, of course, is a submission to the Mayor of London. Once the Mayor of London has made up his mind as to how much each borough is going to get, so that submission will be reviewed against whatever the budget is provided for. So this is more of an indication of where we'd like to spend the money as opposed to exactly how and what we're going to spend the money on. So there we have it. There is a recommendation at the top of page 166, which I move.
Thank you. Colleagues, recommendations agreed.
Agreed.
Agenda item 11, the Youth Justice Plan 24 to 29. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Leader. The Hillingdon Youth Justice Service Strategy sets out a clear vision of how the services will be delivered over the next 5 years. The strategy will allow the Council to make clear priorities for youth justice, to assist in the development and performance management of work streams, and provide a framework for our work with partner organisations. In June 2024, the Cabinet agreed to a public consultation on the proposed youth justice strategy. The consultation took place between the 1st of July and the 11th of August 2024, including feedback from the Select Committee on the 17th of July 2004. I'll just read from the supporting information that local authorities have a statutory duty to submit an annual youth justice plan relating to the provision of the youth justice services as per Section 40 of the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, which stipulates that it is a duty of each local authority, after consultation with partner agencies, to formulate and implement an annual youth justice plan. We have done it, we've now created one, a 5-year plan. There is a duty also to provide the service, and it is clear in the current climate that the demands on the service will intensify over the next 5 years of this strategy. While at this stage there's no additional risk of financial pressure, there are a few potential risks going forward which the service will need to monitor, including the increase in youth offending, particularly during the ongoing financial instability, potential pressures on remand accommodation costs, which are exorbitantly high, and any reductions in funding that may happen and occur within the next 5 years. These risks will be closely monitored, but I just wanted to put that out as part of this report. Cabinet tonight is asked to look at the recommendations, which are on the top of page 184, asked to consider the findings of the positive response from the consultation, and also recommend to full council the adoption of the 5-year strategy as a policy framework document. I therefore move. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, is that recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Item 12, the monthly council budget monitoring report. Councillor Gard.
Thank you, Leader. This report addresses the Council's financial position as at month 5, that is the 31st of August 2024. This comprises an outturn forecast for the full financial year ending the 31st of March 2025, and as previously promised, provides a progress report on the zero-based budgeting project, which is central to the Council's plans to address the material financial pressures which I've referred to in earlier reports. The work on ZBB has identified a projected overspend of £32.4 million, which will be reduced by savings measures identified thus far of £15.6 million and potentially by a further benefit of £10 million brought about by the release of balance sheet items. This, if achieved, will reduce the overall in-year overspend to £6.6 million. Members should be aware that the ZBB programme has so far identified total savings amounting to £39.6 million, albeit that £23.7 million will fall into later financial years. The Star Chamber phase of ZBB is not yet finished and will not be completed until the end of this month. There is therefore a reasonable expectation that the totality of savings derived from this programme will increase beyond what is identified here. I must emphasise that this extensive range of savings is subject to formal approval by Cabinet, and that a key factor is that they can be effectively delivered on a timely basis. The savings are very largely targeted at areas such as streamlining of back office functions, realising the benefits of digitisation, investing in investor-save measures, and income maximisation. I must emphasise that they do not contain cuts to key frontline services. We recognise that the financial challenges faced by Hillingdon are substantial. The key elements of this overspend comprise the need to rebase recurring cost budgets by £14.1 million, in-year budget pressures amounting to £10.7 million, with areas previously reported such as adult social care, looked after children and homelessness being major contributors. Furthermore, shortfalls on income targets and savings amount to £7.6 million. Whilst I take little comfort from this, the pressures being experienced by Hillingdon are very similar to those sustained by many authorities across the nation, and in particular in London. London councils alone predict that London boroughs will sustain overspends against budget of at least £600 million in the current financial year. The positive aspects for Hillingdon are that the need for action was identified and promptly responded to, resulting in the council-wide ZBB programme, and that Hillingdon has managed and controlled its cash flow and its borrowing successfully over this demanding and difficult period. Our newly appointed Corporate Director of Finance is driving the ZBB process and is working with fellow officers and members. I expect to be able to provide Cabinet with a further update when the results of the budget monitoring for month 6 are to hand. I am also formally requesting that the Corporate Director of Finance provides Cabinet with a financial improvement plan in order to strengthen operational and financial controls and promotes the enhanced use of digital data to proactively manage operations. As previously reported, operational improvements have generated a reduction of £9.5 million in the in-year deficit for the dedicated schools grant, albeit that a projected in-year deficit of £16.1 million still remains. I predict that continuing operational improvement in areas such as rebanding of EHCPs and the creation of new in-borough SEN units will yield further reductions to the in-year deficit, albeit that the inadequacy of central government funding into the high needs blocks remains a significant issue. The housing revenue account continues on track with budget. Plans are being developed for an enhanced capital programme in order to increase housing stock and reduce pressures derived from homelessness. I therefore move recommendation 1 of the report, which is set out on page 2 of Pack B. Recommendation 2 is detailed on page 18 and only comprises one item. This consists of one financially oriented recommendation relating to the proposed budget environment of £14.1 million in respect of the budget rebasing, as previously reported for me. I therefore move recommendation 2. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goddard, and you are so right in setting out the challenges ahead for this council with regards to financial position. I was only with London councils this morning, where all London council leaders came together with their directors of finance to discuss the pressures on local authorities and the ask of government that to be expected to be delivered in the budget. One is anticipating that budget with some trepidation, in the hope that the outcomes of that do not make our situation even worse. Colleagues, are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Agenda item 13 is a public preview of matters to be considered in private. As I said, when we move into part 2, we ask members of the public to retire or leave and break the YouTube link. But we're trying to give as much transparency about the matters that are discussed in private as we can, and that report is in there. I particularly wish to draw your attention to what will be agenda item 14, the Civic Centre, where we are issuing the NHS a licence to occupy one of our wings at the Civic Centre, which will not only advantageous financially through an income that we receive from them, but will also further strengthen the partnership that we have. And we've already heard the strength of the partnership we have through our safeguarding arrangements. This is only to take this the next step forward and is to be celebrated. Colleagues, is that report noted?
Noted.
Thank you. We're now moving into part 2. Ask members of the public to leave and break the link. Thank you, Mark.